Horns up and welcome to the first ever Headbangers Kitchen podcast. I guess this is officially the first episode. And is it even a podcast if I am just talking to myself effectively? Or perhaps I am just imagining you in front of me and I'm talking to you. So, does this count as a podcast or does this count as a vlog? Because there is video to this as well if you're watching this on Spotify or on YouTube. But if you're listening to it somewhere else, I guess it's just audio. So that's the first question I have to ask. Is it a podcast? Is it a vlog? What is it? And why am I even starting this? I've been toying with the idea of doing a podcast for a while now because, podcasts are all the rage in the world today. Everyone and their uncle has a podcast, and now I guess even I do. And I figured, when I did the Licious episode, I don't know if you saw me do the, Hot Ones episode, where I tried all these different hot sauces and I was asked questions by my editor Jishnu. We put that up on YouTube, and I figured since that was a sort of question and answer kind of video, it was actually not a bad idea to upload as a podcast as well. And that's kind of how the first pilot episode of the Headbangers Kitchen podcast actually went live. And I was toying with what can I talk about on this podcast? Will anybody be even listening to me? Would anyone even care if I did a podcast? After all those questions and, generally thinking about things in life, I said, you know what? Let's just do it because, why not? But I didn't have any ideas for what I could talk about on the podcast. Till last evening, I ordered pizza for dinner and I tweeted about it. I tweeted how my new diet allowed me to eat anything I wanted, whenever I wanted. But because I ate in moderation and I ate sensibly and responsibly for the most part of it, it was all good that I ordered pizza on a Tuesday night. And somebody asked, can you define moderation? So I figured that would be like a very good starting point for this podcast. I could talk about my current diet, what exactly does it entail, and what does moderation really mean when it comes to food. So let's start off with that. What is my current diet? I'm not on any diet at this point in time for a number of reasons. Being a food creator, someone who creates recipes on the Headbangers Kitchen channel, someone who reviews restaurants and takeaway food on his other channel called Headbanger Eats, it's very hard for me to maintain any kind of restrictive diet. And truth be told, I'm not sure I want to. I'm one of those people that lives to eat. That's the correct one. Some people eat to live. I live to eat. So when I travel, I want to enjoy the local cuisine. I want to experiment and discover new flavors, new foods, new ingredients. And if you're on some kind of a diet like low carb or keto or carnivore or vegan or paleo, you're always restricted and you're always feeling that restriction. And that was one of the reasons I even went off the keto diet, is because it was very restrictive for me personally and it just didn't make sense. So having said that, the sort of ability to eat a restrictive diet is not something I really fancy. However, having said that, I do always look to eat nutritious and wholesome food, and I like to cook most of my own meals. I don't mind eating the same food 5 days in a row. So what I really eat on most days is I have some kind of chicken rice for lunch. That is my staple, which kind of stays consistent unless I have to go out for some kind of a restaurant review or a lunch or something like that. But chicken rice is my go-to. I don't eat too much rice, but I definitely like chicken rice in any of its multiple variants, whether it's a Hainanese chicken rice or a soya braised chicken or even a chicken biryani or a pulao that's not spicy. I like chicken and rice in any form, fried rice. But what I do like to ensure that I'm doing, I think I'm starting to now digress a bit from where I started out, because this is my first podcast, so you'll have to excuse me. But I think what I look to do with my current way of eating is I focus on the protein macro. And I think that is something that is easy, it's doable, and there's a reason, of course, for it. Protein is, I think, the most important macro because it helps you build muscle, it helps you preserve muscle. So for me, protein is a vital element and component of all my meals. So I try and make sure that I get at least 20 to 25 grams of protein with each meal that I have, which then, is sufficient for the entire day. And I try and eat nutritious food. So when I eat things, if I'm eating a cookie, it's not that I can't eat a cookie. It's just that I know that a cookie is not giving me a lot of nutrition compared to, say, a carrot or beetroots or fruit like orange or watermelon. So that's something I try and actively think about. It's not that I can't eat the cookie, I can, but given the option, I will try and pick the more nutritious option that's available. One of the other things I have done, and this I have done pretty much throughout my weight loss journey, has been to calorie count. So I've always weighed my food, I've logged my calories, and because of doing that for so many years, I can actually eyeball a lot of the food that I eat. And I also have a kitchen scale which allows me to sort of keep everything in check. So what I like to do for my lunch generally, again, this is the chicken rice meal that I have. I always try and get at least 100 grams of chicken breast or chicken thigh or whatever meat I'm eating. I try and get 100 to 110, 120 grams of meat. That's the cooked weight on the plate. I eat about 100 to 120 grams of rice. And I eat about 100 grams or 75 to 100 grams of vegetables. And I also then try and make sure that my plate weight, obviously given this calculation, I try and stay under 300 grams of food on the plate. That kind of helps me sort of eyeball things. So if I've ordered, say, a chicken fried rice, now a chicken fried rice is probably going to be super high calorie if it's come from a restaurant, but I know that when I'm putting the food on my plate, if the overall plate weight of all the food is under 300 grams or at 300 grams, or maybe not even like more than 350, if it's a little up or down, that's okay. But I know that if I'm eating about 350 grams of food, that's probably all I need to eat. So there are a lot of these tips and tricks that I've kind of learned over the years, and I use that to kind of gauge how much I'm eating in a day. I already know how many calories I require in a day to maintain my weight, how many calories to gain or how many calories to lose. And what I like to do is every morning I weigh myself and I kind of look at the graph at the end of the week. Is my weight starting to trend upwards? Is it starting to go down? And accordingly I can adjust what I'm eating. Like I said, for the most part, I don't mind eating the same food 5 days in a row, especially for lunch. So what I like to do on a Sunday is cook up my Monday to Friday lunches. I like to stock up on things that I can eat for dinner or for breakfast. And breakfast these days, I've actually been eating a lot of ham sandwiches because I do love sandwiches. I like bread, I like ham, and I don't go crazy by putting a lot of cheese or butter on my sandwich. I do eat some fruit to kind of add some more nutrition to my meal. So I'll eat a ham sandwich, and I'm okay eating white bread. That's fine for me. I'll use a little bit of butter, which again I weigh out. I think things like that are what make the difference. Butter is like a super high calorie food. A tablespoon of butter is about 120 calories. So if you don't pay attention, you could end up putting 120 calories of butter in your sandwich, compared to if I were to weigh out the butter that I spread on each slice, or if I use something like a low fat mayonnaise, which is very low in calories, or mustard, which is even fewer calories. I can actually make sure that my sandwich has way more protein and is more suited to my sort of requirements. So I can get in that 20 grams of protein in the morning, and again, to balance it out, I have some fruit which is got fiber and lots of vitamins and nutrients in it. So that's pretty good as well. And for dinner, it's generally more flexible. We're either having sandwiches again. I really love sandwiches. Or I'll have a chicken breast with some vegetables, or maybe a steak. Once again, I try and balance out the calories. So each meal, generally I like to make sure that I'm not eating more than 600 calories per meal, which is about 1800 calories in the day for me, and that's generally good. I also use a lot of tools like intermittent fasting. So, for example, if I have a pizza like I did last night, and say for some reason I chose to not eat in moderation, maybe Dipti was making a cocktail and I decided to have a drink. And when you drink, you normally tend to eat a little bit more. And maybe I ate way more calories than I should have. The next morning I can just skip breakfast and that sort of compensates for the indulgence the night before. And again, I don't get like crazy. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not going to eat for 24 hours now. No, I have those calorie brackets that I've kind of created for myself. And that's what I pretty much do to sort of make sure that I'm not gaining weight and I'm still getting to enjoy the foods that I like. So let's talk about moderation now, because I guess that's what the purpose of this was. What is moderation? When we talk about moderation, a lot of people say they have uncontrollable cravings. Like if they eat one bite of sugar, they will eat if they have one bite of cake, they will eat the entire cake instead of just a slice. For me, on keto, that restrictiveness is what actually caused me to binge eat. Because I was depriving myself of everything, when I did get to eat bread, I would eat like 4 or 5 slices of sourdough with butter, and like that's not a low calorie food. You're easily consuming 1,000 calories there, slathering on the butter on a huge slice of sourdough, but it's just so good. And when I allowed myself to eat everything, I didn't need to eat 4 slices of sourdough in one sitting. I would eat one slice and I'm like, yeah, I'm full. Because it's not like that food is going away. I could eat sourdough every meal for a week and I'd probably get sick of it by the end of it. So for me, moderation is a method where I can enjoy foods, not get sick of them, not binge eat. Of course, if you allow yourself to eat everything and you are still unable to control your intake of food, maybe it is time to seek professional help. Maybe talk to a therapist, because I think we often equate food as a very physical thing. Like, oh, you don't have any willpower, or we blame all sorts of strange things, but we don't realize that our mental health is as important as our physical health. And a lot of times people are emotional eaters, or they eat to fill some kind of emotional void, and no amount of dieting is going to fix that. You need to go to a professional, probably get therapy, and learn to deal with food in a much different way. So I think that's kind of something that people don't really talk about or don't look at when they talk about weight loss and diet. And having said that, I must say that I'm neither a dietitian nor a doctor nor a nutritionist nor any of those things. And I always tell people, if you have any medical condition, always consult a professional. What I'm sharing with you is my personal experience, and it is purely anecdotal in nature. It is not scientific fact, but this is what works for me. And I think everyone has to kind of find what works for them and their lifestyle, because everyone is so different, right from our financial situation, to the country we live in, to our family genetics and history, to our emotional problems. Everyone's different, so it's very hard to have a one diet fits all, one size fits all actually. So what I find as moderation, somebody else might not really agree with that, but this is what works for me. And I think if I can sort of trace the the origins of this moderation, I actually remember while growing up, my mother was extremely strict about things. And when I say strict, I don't mean that in a bad way, but she let us have pretty much anything and everything we wanted. So we were allowed to have Coke and Pepsi and sweets and chips and biscuits or whatever, but everything was in moderation. Wow, I'm I've got to up my podcast game soon. So as I was saying, everything was in moderation. So when we were eating also, it's like, okay, you each get 2 pieces of chicken, you get some vegetables, you get some potato, you get a slice of bread or whatever, that would be a meal. We'd go to my grandparents' house on the weekend and we were allowed 1 Pepsi or 1 Coke. That's it. You can't just keep drinking one after the other. You are allowed one in the day. After dinner, you want chocolate? Cool, you're allowed two pieces of chocolate. And I think that's also something that has been ingrained in me. So when I went to college and I saw kids eating an entire packet of biscuits or finishing like a party pack of potato chips, I was horrified. I remember there was a friend of mine who came over, and it was a party at my house, maybe a birthday party, and I think my mother had ordered biryani, and my friend took 5 pieces of chicken from the biryani, and my mother was absolutely horrified. And even for me, that was so strange. Like, wow, you're taking 5 pieces of chicken from the biryani? Like, like just take two. Like, two has always been the magic number. Two cookies, 2 pieces of chocolate, 2 pieces of chicken. And I think that's pretty much how I served myself food. Like, for the longest time, it was always like in twos. So, I used to even drink 2 cups of coffee in a day, one in the morning, one in the evening. Now I think I drink about 3 or 2.5, if you want to call it that. But yeah, so that moderation was already instilled in me, and that's pretty much what I mean when I say I'm moderate. Like, I eat in moderation. So if I want to have a cookie, I'll have one cookie or two cookies. I won't eat the whole bag. Not that I keep cookies in my house, because I really don't like cookies for the most part. Same with, like, I ordered pizza, so for me that means eating 3 slices or maybe half the pizza, not the entire pizza. Even though I could eat an entire pizza because it's so delicious and it's tasty. Most of the times, if I will order a burger and fries, that's way too many calories. That's nearly 1,000 calories. And again, like I said, I have calorie counted for years, so I can eyeball things. So I'll actually eat half the burger and half the fries and leave the rest for another meal. And that's how I sort of eat in moderation. And the thing is, like, okay, if I'm having a dessert, like, desserts are very high calorie. Even if you have one slice of a cheesecake after a meal, even an average size slice is about 300 to 350 calories at least, depending on where you've ordered it from. So for me, eating a cheesecake in moderation is just like a couple of bites after dinner. I wouldn't eat the entire slice even. Most of the times where I would be indulgent with my food is at a restaurant, obviously, because I now go in these foodie groups where we literally order everything from the menu, and I'm definitely overeating. But again, like I said, I use tools like intermittent fasting, where I will not eat breakfast the next morning, or perhaps that day I won't eat breakfast. So actually, yesterday when I ordered the pizza, I was supposed to go for lunch to a burger restaurant where I was going to eat a 700 calorie burger. Without any fries, it was 700 calories for the burger. So if I had eaten that, that would be way more than I would have in a single sitting. So I had skipped breakfast. I just had a mango for breakfast, which is about 100 odd calories maybe. So I was anyway sort of compensating for that lunch. And so when I ate the pizza last night, it really wasn't a big deal. I didn't need to skip breakfast this morning. I actually had a slice of cold pizza for breakfast. I'm curious, for those who are on a platform and listening to this where you can comment, do you like cold pizza? Because that's like a thing in our house. Dipti just loves cold pizza. For those who are listening to me for the first time, Dipti is my wife. And even I have grown to love cold pizza in the morning. So yeah, that's a thing. So I think in terms of what I wanted to talk about this podcast, moderation, eating in moderation, that's kind of my diet. I think I've covered most of the things I wanted to talk about. I like to think that this flexible way of eating kind of lets me eat in the best way possible, to kind of have your cake and eat it too. One of the other things I really focus on a lot these days is exercise, because that is definitely important for overall health. As I mentioned earlier, I focus a lot on protein, and the reason I do that is because I look to build muscle. I think as I've grown older, I've realized the importance of building and maintaining muscle. So I go to the gym at least twice a week and lift heavy weights, as heavy as I can. Because as you age, you start to lose muscle if you're not working out regularly and eating sufficient protein. And you'll see a lot of people, I've seen, my grandparents become old and frail, and they basically lose all their muscle. And none of them went to the gym, none of them ate a lot of protein. So I think that for me is something that I have taken away from seeing them, is that I really want to make sure that as I grow older, I definitely maintain as much muscle as I can. I really want to be as physically fit as possible when I'm older. So that's also why I make sure I exercise every day. So if I'm not in the gym working out and doing weight training, I'm walking 6 kilometers at least every day. And that's really good for your heart as well, of course, doing cardio. So for me, that's kind of become a routine and a very important part of my sort of life now. And I think earlier I was very averse to exercising. In fact, one of the reasons I started keto was because I really did not want to exercise. I did not like exercising. It felt like a task. And now, even though I'm not fond of exercising, like I don't like, oh my god, wow, I can't wait to work out. No, it takes some effort to get to the gym, but I know that it's important. I don't like brushing my teeth either, but hey, I need my teeth. So like these are all things that you do, even though they're not fun activities or whatever. They are just part of your life. They're your routine. Taking a shower, shaving if you do shave, brushing your teeth, going for a walk, going to the gym. All this is now part of life, and I think that is kind of my focus now. I was very focused on losing weight because I was a chubby kid. My mother told me, if you are chubby, girls will not like you, which wasn't motivation enough to get me to exercise, unfortunately. But just for better health, it kind of makes sense for me now to be at an optimal weight and to work towards building muscle. I'm no longer looking to just lose weight, because when you lose weight, you can lose muscle, you can lose water weight, you can lose fat. There's no guarantee that you're only burning and losing fat. So when I did keto, I actually went down to my goal weight, which was 64 kilos. And while I definitely looked slimmer and trimmer, I just looked like a dehydrated version of myself. I didn't have any definition. I wasn't toned. And that's because I didn't focus on weight training. I didn't focus on building muscle. I just focused on losing weight as a number on the scale. Right now, I'm actually a little heavier than I was before I started keto. But I'm definitely more muscle now than I was before. So, I think my goals are very different now. It's not just trying to get to a number on the scale. I'm also trying to sort of, like I said, build, and I feel like I keep repeating myself, but you guys get the picture. So I think overall health is more important to me right now than just the number on the scale. And I think with that, I think this is a good time to probably end this first episode of the Headbangers Kitchen podcast. I'll obviously be back next week. I'd love to know from you guys, what topics would you like me to cover? If you have any questions, I'd love for you to send them to me either via the comments on my YouTube channel, or maybe tweet to me on Twitter, or DM me on Instagram, and I'll be happy to answer them in the coming episodes. I would also like to talk more about food, about cooking, about recipes, because that's essentially what Headbangers Kitchen was and is as a channel. It's all about the food. Yeah, keto was one part of my food journey, and I did do a whole bunch of these kind of diet and lifestyle and informational videos, but I think my main passion and love has always been the food, and I'd like this podcast to also evolve and become a lot more about food, recipes, sharing stories. Maybe in future episodes I could have other people on the podcast as well, and then maybe it won't be a vlog and it'll be a legitimate podcast. Anyway, you let me know, because that's been enough jibber jabber from me. I guess I will see you on the next episode. Until then, cheers and keep cooking.